Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the different overreactions that are going to happen throughout these next couple of weeks and just want you guys to avoid it. If that young quarterback doesn't play all that great in his first big time game, give him a little bit of slack. He'll find his way in the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure will be a much better player in weeks 10 than they were in week 2. But we'll break that down obviously throughout the year and see what overreactions are coming for us after this week 1, because I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few. But let's get into the players to watch this upcoming weekend, and all of these players kind of have different reasons to watch them. Some it's not the marquee game of the weekend, but you got to see specific things from these players to feel really confident as you head into the rest of the season. And for me, it starts with Jalen Milroe. I think this is one that obviously he's playing Western Kentucky. A lot of you will likely not be tuned into that game. But at the end of the day, you want to see him in this DeBoer offense because obviously we talked about the DeBoer offense. It takes a lot of different forms. DeBoer is more than capable of handling this as a run-first offense, and that's likely what they will be this upcoming year. So I don't think it's going to be, he has to play the Michael Penix offense from a year ago by any means. He is going to have to make more NFL throws. He's going to have to make more of those layered second-level throws that Michael Penix was just outright elite at a year ago. So that's going to be kind of the biggest difference. And I think when you talk about Western Kentucky, it's a good taking off point. It's not a great pass defense. It's a team that's going to be able to pass the ball and maybe give you a couple extra possessions on offense that you need. So I think it's one of those games where you don't just want to see the deep ball in the run game. You can beat Western Kentucky using the deep ball in the run game in this game, but I want to see a couple of those big-time throws. I want to see a crosser over the middle that he layers over a corner and under a safety. I want to see an out route that he gets under a safety just barely in time. I want to see some of those plays that were lacking a year ago and he's more than capable of making, but strides have to be taken. So there's a couple of games here, WKU, South Florida, where it's not, a great team on the other side of the ball. It's a team that you absolutely should beat, but it's also a team that could cause problems for you, and it's going to give us a good idea of just where Jalen Milroe is in his progress. If he misses some of those balls the same way he did a year ago, maybe you're a little bit worried heading up to that Wisconsin game in week 3. But if he can hit all the spots, if he's doing everything on time and in rhythm, then maybe it's dangerous for pretty much everyone else in the entire country guarding this guy. But moving along here, Jaden Blue is the other guy that I'm watching very closely. I think with CJ Baxter going down, there's a lot of stuff you need to see from this kid on Saturday. They do get Colorado State, so got to feel pretty confident that you're going to be able to see plenty of stuff from this guy. But at the end of the day, when you talked about losing CJ Baxter, it wasn't that they didn't have the talent in that room to handle that loss. They absolutely do, and I think the 3 guys they have is going to be enough for this upcoming year. The in-between the tackle running, the pass pro, is the 2 biggest things that were left behind when CJ Baxter went down. That's what you need to see from Jaden Blue. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be a finished product right away, but seeing him run between the A and B gap, seeing him, dominate in between the tackles, and then seeing him take that linebacker that's rushing and really hold him up is going to be huge for this team. So it's going to be kind of the mundane stuff. I know Jaden Blue can run 23 miles an hour and absolutely tear down the field for an 80-yard touchdown. And I probably will see that on Saturday, but that's not necessarily what I need to see. What I need to see is him gain 5 yards on a really tough run for third down. What I need to see is him pick up that extra blitzer when you don't expect it on a long third down. Like, all of that stuff is going to be hugely important for this team, and Jaden Blue is going to be the guy that's going to be called on to do a ton of that stuff throughout the season. So that's going to be the big thing I'm watching for him. And then Cade Klubnik, this one feels obvious. He's coming off a year where it looks so bad, if I'm being totally honest. And there were a number of things that were totally outside of Cade Klubnik's control that totally affected that. But he's going to be under a microscope pretty much from day one. But he does have a little bit of leeway in week 1. Let's be honest. When you're facing Georgia, you have just a little bit of leeway to look clunky at times. But what you want to see is just, is he more confident? Is he walking out on that field with his head held high? Is he controlling this offense a little bit better? Has he taken that leadership role over just a little bit better? And is he hitting guys in stride? Is this offense looking a little bit more multiple than it did a year ago? Because everyone has talked about this throughout the offseason. Garrett Riley was not calling his offense a year ago. He was calling Clemson's offense. Now, hopefully, he's calling his offense, and that's going to be a big thing to watch throughout Georgia's game, whether it's, they utilize motions more, they utilize a lot more wide receiver sets where there are not as many tight ends on the field, whatever that looks like. It's got to be more, and we got to see Cade Klubnik effectively run it, and I think it'll be really, really interesting to watch that. Can he go through his progressions? Is he confident throwing the ball? Is he confident in this system, at least as it looks against a Georgia defense that makes a lot of people look not too confident in their offense? But at the end of the day, if he's a guy that's going to be able to make the plays that they want him to make, this is a week that you're going to have to be watching him pretty closely. Cam Ward, this one's another obvious one, no doubt about it. He was brought in for a very specific purpose. They want to compete for a title. They want to go to the ACC title, win it, go to the playoff, and then possibly make some history, period. That's the entire goal of this season for Miami, and he's the guy they brought in to do it. Period, end of story. So it's going to be incredible to watch. It starts on Saturday, and he's going to be under a huge microscope because he's going to be on national television for everyone to watch at 3:30, and everyone's going to be watching that one at 3:30, except if you're a Texas fan, maybe you're watching the Texas game, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be locked in on this one, and it's going to be incredible to watch it. But this guy has all the ability in the world. He can do everything you want him to do on the football field. He doesn't always do it all that consistently. That's the big time worry about him, and there are going to be people watching waiting for him to make that mistake. There are going to be people watching waiting to say Miami didn't go out and get the right quarterback in the portal, or say Miami, doesn't have the offensive coaching staff to get it done at this level. I don't think any of that stuff is true, but there will be people waiting in lines to do that for the Miami starting quarterback. I promise you that. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. He's walking into the swamp for his first game at Miami. It's going to be a battle. And as long as I can see him feel confident, as long as I can see him comfortable in that pocket, and then make a couple of those special plays that they brought him in there to make, I would feel pretty good if I was a Miami fan, even if I came out there with a slight loss, like I said earlier in the show. Anthonie Knapp is another just plainly obvious one. I hate to say that this kid is going to be on full display in his very first game of college football, but he absolutely is. They have two incredibly good edge rushers on the other side for A&M. When you talk about Nick Scourton and when you talk about Cassius Howell, he's going to get a ton of those guys, and especially Nick Scourton, because they know what they have in Nick Scourton. He's going to dominate this kid. And frankly, I'm not expecting Anthonie Knapp to do a ton on Saturday. I'm not expecting him to totally stonewall Nick Scourton or make sure he doesn't get one sack on the day. What I am hoping to see is that he just plays sound football. He shields. He doesn't try to win the rep. He just tries to shield Nick Scourton off to the side, get Riley Leonard a running lane. Or you try to hold him up just for long enough for Riley Leonard to get that RPO out. All of these little things that, it might not look perfect throughout the day on Saturday. Frankly, I think it's going to look far from perfect for Anthonie Knapp. But at the end of the day, I think he can tie it all together and just play good football. Just hold serve with Nick Scourton for enough plays that Notre Dame can break a couple of big-time plays on offense and totally change this game. And then Riley Leonard obviously going to be under a microscope. A primetime game, a team that finally feels like they have the guys in that building to possibly win a national title, and he's the guy at the center of it. So it's going to be incredible to watch this guy, especially handle what Kyle Field has in store for him, because that place is going to be crazy, but it's going to be really, really interesting to watch this kid. I think he's a very, very talented guy, but coming into a new offense that is not necessarily the offense that leans towards his strengths all that much, it's going to be really interesting to watch what he can do in week one, and there will be some conclusions drawn one way or the other, I can promise you that. Moving on, Harold Perkins is someone that we're just going to have to watch on Saturday because the LSU defense is just not going to be great, plain and simple. They're just not going to be the team that you want them to be, at least that LSU fans want them to be on the defensive side of the ball. That doesn't mean their new number 7, Harold Perkins, can't make plays, and he absolutely can. He's someone that it's kind of under a microscope in a weird type of way. This defense is not going to be great. I expect them to give up quite a few points on Saturday. I want to see Harold Perkins in the right places. I want to see Harold Perkins rushing the passer. I want to see Harold Perkins guarding someone, guarding a running back out of the backfield. I want to see Harold Perkins being multiple. That's the end goal for Harold Perkins this upcoming year, where last year it was not that. He was very, very stagnant because he was not put in the positions that he needs to be to succeed. So I want to see this guy all over the field, just playing every single position you could possibly imagine, and especially rushing the passer, because that's when he's really special. And that obviously comes down to Blake Baker. He's going to be under a big-time microscope early on in this season, and it kind of stinks for him because this USC offense is going to be a nightmare to stop, and frankly, I'd be surprised if they were able to stop it even a little bit. But at the end of the day, what you want to see is the technically sound stuff. You want to see better tackling. You want to see guys handling their assignments just a little bit better, and you want to see guys that play harder than they did a year ago. That's the end goal in this game. So it's not necessarily a ton, but you're definitely going to want to see a good bit from Blake Baker just in terms of confidence and play calling and tackling, all the nuanced stuff that just makes it a little bit better for this offense in 2024. And then moving on to the other side, Bear Alexander is one of the most important players for this USC team, bar none. He is absolutely huge, and if they're going to make noise in the Big Ten with all of the heavy run offenses, they need an interior D lineman that's going to be a game changer. And Alexander is really the only guy in that room that I feel really confident can do that. So he's showed it in flashes throughout his career, whether it was at Georgia or at USC, but this LSU O-line is really good. And I saw Will Campbell and him going back and forth just a little bit. I love a little bit of smack talk as we head up to these games. But at the end of the day, Bear Alexander is the guy that just needs to make plays for this team. And then obviously, for the same reason you're watching Blake Baker, you're going to be watching Anthonie Knapp. It doesn't have to look perfect. It probably won't look perfect. It'll look far from perfect if I had to imagine, but be better, tackle better. Play as a unit, look tough at the line of scrimmage. Even if you don't necessarily win it the entire night, look like you're holding your own just a little bit better. So it's kind of those nuanced things again. You're not looking at those big grandiose things. How many points do they hold LSU to, or how many yards per play, all that type of stuff. It's just when a play is right in front of these teams, when a play is right in front of an LSU linebacker, or right in front of a USC DB, do they make that play? Because last year they didn't, and it led to a lot of huge plays down the field. If they can make that minuscule step this upcoming year, they're going to jump pretty far in those rankings for total defense. But it'll be interesting to watch that unfold. There's no doubt about that. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference for us. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all of the social pages for all of the content and updates you could possibly need. We have really incredible people doing awesome work across every single sport you could want. So anything you need in the world of sports, come on over to GSMC and we have you totally covered. But thank you once again for listening, and we will be back once again for more of the Week 1 predictions tomorrow.